Bassmasters, you'd better set your VCRs to record. For in the next 30 minutes, you're going to learn one of the most tightly held bassin secrets of all time. We're at Lake Sinclair today in central Georgia for the Bassmaster Georgia Top 100 tournament. We're here at the time when the peach blossoms are in full bloom. This 15,300-acre impoundment on the Oconee River is unique in the annals of bassin history. It's the lake that really launched the pro career of cranking king David Fritz. And it's here, for the first time ever, that David reveals some of the tricky techniques he uses with his rod and reel to trigger bass into biting. Our Bassmasters field reporter, Tim Miller, is out on the lake to tell us more about Lake Sinclair. Tim?
Bob, this 16,000-acre central Georgia impoundment has two main arms, the main Oconee River arm and the Little River arm. However, we're hearing most anglers say that you might look for the Oconee arm to produce more fish this week. We're in a pre-spawn pattern here. Water temperature is 55 to 58 degrees. But the most interesting thing about Lake Sinclair is its current flow. Water is not only pulled through the Lake Sinclair Dam, but it's back pumped out of Sinclair back upstream to Lake Oconee during low power consumption. For a Bassmaster Pro, that creates a current that actually goes both directions. New Jersey Pro Pete Glusick explains how a fisherman has to adjust.
At any given time during the day, the current could be standing still, running north to south, or south to north. So it's a complicated system to follow. If you're fishing a point, you're gonna be fishing the southern side of the point if they're generating power, and you're going to be fishing the northern side of the point if they're pumping back. It's a very difficult thing to adjust because the water level also fluctuates here up to a foot. And if you're fishing shallow structures such as grass or some shallow wood cover, if the lake's drawn down about a foot, the fish tend to leave those areas. So it's a constantly changing reservoir. You have to adapt with the changing water conditions all throughout the day.
Another pro to keep your eye on is North Carolina's David Fritz.
It's got a tremendous amount of fish in it. You've got every kind of cover here. You've got anything from weeds to deep structure. You've got dirty water and you've got clear water. So it's got everything that the lake has to offer here. One of the key patterns, you know, in the spring, it's really my first trip here. Pretty much try to find some staging fish that are moving up in the pockets along little secondary points, little corners, throwing small crankbaits, shad wraps, you know, just any type of action type bait. You know, conditions are pretty bad right now. We've got high and muddy water, and that makes it for a tough tournament. A lot of times it's hard for the fish to see your bait. You got to slow down a little bit. And if I was to pick one thing to fish, almost any time of the year, it'd have to be either a point, whether it be a secondary or a major point.
So, Bob, coming up, we're going to show you some exclusive, never-seen-before footage from the crankbait master on his key cranking technique. This show is going to be one of the all-time greats for bass and know-how.
Thanks, Tim. We'll have a lot more right after this. The Bassmasters will be right back.
Downtown Milledgeville, Georgia, known as the antebellum capital of the Peachtree State, about 90 miles southwest of Atlanta, and about 3 miles outside of town, Lake Sinclair, a 15,300-acre impoundment on the Oconee and Little Rivers. The time is early March. The bass are moving up for the spring fling, but heavy seasonal rains have turned Sinclair's surface color to chocolate milk.
There's one.
Early spring bassin offers these pros one of two choices. Either chase after shallow bass already on the beds, or try to find the migration routes where fish come up from their deep water winter haunts, headed for the shallow pockets and coves to spawn. For Missouri pro Denny Brower, there's extra motivation to do well. He's $24,000 shy of winning over $1 million on the Bassmaster Tournament Trail. A first or second place finish here would put him over the top. He'd join Larry Nixon and Rick Clunn as only the third member of the BASS $1 Million Honor Roll.
What we got going is basically two different patterns. You've got some scattered shoreline grass, kind of viney weed-like stuff that grows out to about 2.5, 3 foot of water, and we're catching some fish slow-rolling spinner bites through it. The rest of the fish seem to be relating to wood, these dock piers. And I'm getting all them to bite. I'm throwing what we call a chameleon craw brown color. It's kind of a subtle color, and for some reason it seems to be working pretty good. And throwing the new Strike King Pro Model jig with just a junior size bow hog pork frog behind it, fishing it real slow. And I'm fishing it on 25-pound test strand line in this dirty water. Line does not seem to be a factor. I think we can get by with about any size we want. And they're actually pretty aggressive when you get one to finally bite, but getting the fish to trigger is the problem. My partner's doing something that I think is very smart, and that's, I think, something that an angler that's fishing the back end of a boat ought to definitely do, and that's use a different color bait or a different lure altogether. And he's throwing black and blue in a lot of these same places that I've already dropped the brown jig in. He's getting the fish that didn't really care for it to bite. So that can be an excellent pointer for the non-boater or the amateur in the back of the boat to definitely change up and use a different color or a different size bait, something different. Because not every fish has the same likes. Here we go, we got a fish on. Oh, partner. They're biting, Bo. It's gonna haunt you the rest of your life. They're gonna show it over and over and over.
Across the lake from Denny Brower is North Carolina pro David Fritz. He's located an underwater island that offers a combination of structure all in one spot.
I'm fishing some flats going into these pockets, and these fish are staging up on these flats. Basically, where I'm sitting in 10 foot of water, throwing in about 5 foot. So it's a lot shallower than I'm used to fishing here, and that's where the fish are migrating. They're coming up on these bars and they're going back in the pockets, and that's the way they're headed. And you know, that's my favorite type of pattern is to find the migration routes of where they're going to spawn, pre-spawn pattern. Trying to stay in the wind as much as possible. A lot of times wind pushes the shad around and makes the fish a little more active. I'm throwing a medium running crankbait. Basically a couple different ones. One of my main baits is a number 5 down deep Rapala. You notice that I've been sitting here and I've been fishing a while and I hadn't caught any fish, and all of a sudden, boom, 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 I catch 3 or 4 in a row. And that is, you know, those fish are sitting there, and you've got to figure out how to trigger those fish to strike. And that's what I'm trying to do. I keep changing crankbaits a lot of times, and I keep changing the way I'm winding it. Even though it looks like I'm just winding my bait in, I'm doing different things, but trying to key the fish in. Once I get one to bite, then it's all over with. I can catch them.
And catch him he did. David Fritz takes the early lead in this Georgia Bassmaster Top 100 with a 5 bass limit of 15 pounds 6 ounces. Michigan's Chuck Economou grabs second with 13 pounds 10 ounces, anchored by a 5-pound 13-ounce lunker. Denny Brower's early limit was small, and with only 9 pounds 6 ounces, he's off to a disappointing start. Coming up next on the Bassmasters, we'll pick apart David Fritz's pattern and show you some cranking secrets that have never been told before. David Fritz has a 1-pound, 12-ounce lead in this Georgia Bassmaster Top 100 over Chuck Economou. Florida's Chet Doffett is third, followed by Pete Glusick and Shaw Grigsby Jr.
This is the mouth of Island Creek down by the dam on Lake Sinclair. Appropriately named, it has 2 sunken islands in the mouth of it. And David Fritz pulled in here looking for a pre-spawn staging area.
Well, see, what I've got right here actually is a long point. Runs from that bank right there all the way out past those buoys, and it makes a little hump out here. But you notice that I'm fishing the back side. I'm fishing between the hump and the point, and there's a flat spot. It's about 5 foot deep right in there. And these fish are migrating. They're going right up there in that pocket. And that's where, you know, that's the kind of stuff I like to look for this time of year. Flats are big keys, old flat points, long flat points. Fish a stage on them and then go on up in the spawning grounds.
This will show you just how steep this drop-off is where David Fritz is catching his bass. You can see that the back of this Ranger is in 15 feet of water. The front's at about 3 feet. So just in a boat length, it drops off that much. And that's the area where David's catching his fish.
To fish a spot like that, you want to look for the least obvious place on it. And, you know, that wouldn't be the point. Everybody's going to be out there on the end of that thing fishing a point. And so that eliminates about 80% of the boats. So they're going to stop out there and fish the point. I'm going to fish around that deal and find out if they're up on the flats or you know, where the ambush point is. And that particular place, I'd run in there, and sure, I'd probably start at the point too, but I wouldn't die there. I wouldn't spend a lot of time. I'd just keep working around it. Yeah, I know how to trigger the strikes, and that's, you know, when it comes to fishing a crankbait and making the fish bite it, you know, I feel like I can do that, and I think that gives me an advantage. That's why a lot of times, you know, I can catch them when a lot of other people aren't catching them on crankbaits. You got to know how the fish want that bait, and you got to know how to present it and how to retrieve it. And, you know, it's more than just chunking it out there and winding it in. I think a lot of you have saw that. Now, once you get a fish triggered, then it's pretty simple. All you got to do is throw it out there and wind it in.
David Fritz has become the crankbait king on the Bassmaster Tournament Trail. Now he's going to show you his cranking techniques that have never been revealed before.
Folks, there is a few little tricks that you can do with your rod and reel to make your crankbaits do different things. The thing you need to remember is, you know, whenever you cast and you're winding, you know, anytime you move your rod or anytime you change any type of variation in your retrieve, your bait is doing something different. It's not that steady, this number right here. And that's what that's what I strive on. I strive to maybe speed up and slow up, and sometimes I'll pause my bait or stop my bait. A lot of times, some of the big fish I caught in this tournament, I was actually made a cast, I was winding my bait, and I'd come up on a rock or something hard on the bottom, and I just raised my rod real slow. And you want to try to make your bait quit vibrating, and then usually just, you know, wind it real hard 2 or 3 times and make that bait take off. And a lot of times that triggers the strikes, and a lot of times just being persistent, changing every cast that you make till you figure out how to trigger that first bite. And, you know, I can't say enough how important your equipment is, and I know that if you're going to throw a crankbait, be sure to get you a good reel. Get you something with a 4:1 to a 4:5 ratio. You get those high ratio reels, you're actually burning the bait. A lot of times you will pull the bait away from the fish. You get a lot of fish with a back hook. You know, with a reel like this right here, this is a 4:3:1 ratio. And basically what it does, it allows me to wind at my pace, and that's everybody else's pace. And while I'm doing that, I'm not burning the bait. I'm not actually overwinding the fish. A good medium retrieve, just like this right here. Just a good steady retrieve, and vary. Don't hold your rod in one place. Don't wind the same all the time. Make your baits try to make it imagine that you're the bait. I know it's hard for you folks to imagine that, but imagine you're the bait and you're winding, and you don't want that bait to keep in rhythm. You want it to change, and that's what I try to do with the crankbait. All right, folks, now I told you and showed you how to do it, but the thing is, can you go out there and do it? You know, I've been doing this for years and years and years, and believe me, it takes a lot of time on the water. I mean, there's no substitute for spending time out there.
Florida's Chet Dothert is up the Oconee arm of Lake Sinclair, fishing shallow for spawning bass.
All right, today you guys are going to have to slow down. I'm going to go back down here in a little bit and hit them lower pockets again and throw rattle trap and flip down there and just see if they'll go. I just don't think they're going to chase a bait.
One of the up-and-coming young lions on the Bassmaster Tournament Trail is New Jersey's Pete Glusick. He's in 4th place, 3 pounds off the lead.
I have 2 patterns that I'm working with right now out here on Sinclair, and one of them's a shallow water pattern and the other one's a relatively deep water pattern. My shallow water pattern really consists of cranking a shallow crankbait off main river points. There's a lot of current going over these points when the dam releases water and then goes through their pump back phase, and that's really pushing the shad up on these points, and I'm really catching them good on the crankbait at that time. The other pattern that I'm really working with is a deep water pattern, which I'm using a Carolina rig, and I'm fishing really on the southern part of the lake where there's a little bit clearer water, and the fish and the shad tend to be a little bit deeper there, and I'm catching them off the points on a Carolina rig, a centipede.
David Fritz can't hold the lead this second day. It's Florida pro Shaw Grigsby who jumps from 5th to the top with 14 pounds, 8 ounces.
It's a long time since I've been in the lead in the tournament, and it's awful special to be here.
So the stage is set for the final round of the Bassmaster Georgia Top 100. Shaw Grigsby leads Pete Glusick by half a pound. David Fritz is lurking just one good keeper behind. Final round action is next. Last season, Shaw Grigsby joined the TNN Outdoors lineup with his own show, One More Cast, but he vanished from the leaderboard of the Bassmaster Tournament Trail. Demands of producing his own show took the edge off his competitive ability, but now Shaw's back on top.
You don't know how bad I needed this tournament, though. When I came in to weigh in yesterday, I was shaking as bad as the first time that I ever caught fish in a BASS tournament. Because I had gone for a full year. I made one check in '96, and I'm used to making 6 or 7 or 8 in a year pretty regular. And one check really hurt my feelings, but I started that TV show, and my concentration, I haven't been able to concentrate and fish, and I really needed this tournament just mentally. Fortunately, I love fishing. What I'm doing is just really slow rolling a spinnerbait. It's a 3/8 ounce high performance spinnerbait, and I'm just crawling it through the grass. And usually once you hit the outside edge, and sometimes even 3 or 4, 5, 6 feet away from the edge of the grass, you'll get the hit. Slower the better, and the more casts you can make, the better. The water temperature during the day will creep up right close to 60. The fish are trying to pull in the spawn. Of course, you can't see them. You can't see 6 inches in the water. And you just have to make multiple casts, and fish real, real slow.
Shaw Grigsby is a sight fisherman, and this time of year, boy, he really comes alive. He loves to sight fish, but this muddy water obviously is making it totally out of the question. So what Shaw is doing is, whenever he catches a small male bass off of the bank, he'll make a special mental note of exactly where that fish came from. The idea is then he'll be able to come back later thinking that a female will move up into that area, and he'll be able to catch bigger fish later in the day.
Just fishing what I consider to be where the fish should move up. We got a new moon tomorrow. They should be spawning. The water temperature's getting in the 60s. And so the males are building. Some of the fish I'm catching, you get them to bite, throw back in there 20 minutes later and catch them. They're in the same place. So sometimes you have to fish 10 casts in the same place to catch them.
Don't count old Dave Fritz out either. Fritz caught another quick limit this morning and is hunting that bigger bass.
I don't want to fall in. Yeah. Where'd that fish come from? I told you the big one's going to start biting.
This Georgia Bassmaster Top 100 is going to be a shootout between Shaw Grigsby and David Fritz. Shaw comes to the scales first.
He needs 4 pounds and 12 ounces to reclaim the lead. And for humping Homer Humphreys and the weight, 9 pounds, 6 ounces. People, let's have a nice hand. All right, beautiful. Hold up to folks, he's in a real major league sweat because these bass are good bass, but they're not the big ones he needs. He needs a 5-pounder or so to go with each other 4. But this fish is going to be about 2 and maybe 2.8, 2.9. But they're good, solid keepers.
And David Fritz is the only angler who can knock Shaw out of the lead.
You got to have 11 pounds, 6 ounces to take the lead.
Yeah, I ain't got enough weight.
Weigh him. 8 pounds and 7 ounces, and that's what his weight is. That'll put him up in about 2nd place, maybe 3rd. All the best to you. Give me 5.
So Shaw Grigsby grabs his first BASS tournament win in 3 years and takes home $46,000, including a fully rigged Ranger bass boat. David Fritz needed one more good bite, but finishes second and adds $25,000 to his Lake Sinclair winnings. Denny Brower in third barely missed the Millionaires Club. But with only $1,100 to go, you can bet it won't be long before Denny knocks down another bass fishing milestone. On the amateur side, Bill Florence of Opelika, Alabama takes home a new fully rigged Ranger with a respectable 3-day total of 21 pounds, 6 ounces. Now it's time for the Pros Pointer, the champion's winning tip. Brought to you by Wrangler Rugged Wear, geared for the outdoors.
The spinnerbait I use this whole week is a high-performance spinnerbait made by Lucky Strike. It has two neat features. One is a flat bottom here, which allows it to coast over logs and limbs and through grass, which is real special. If you happen to hit a limb, the deep pocket here on the hook actually kicks it out of the way so you don't get hung up. One of the things I do is put a trailer hook. In the springtime, sometimes they bite real slow, real lightly. Trailer hook has caught a lot of my fish, so you can add that to it. Springtime, multiple casts. Throw in one spot over and over and over. You don't know if there's a bed there or not. We had real muddy water conditions, but I made multiple casts, fished real thoroughly. Every few feet would be a cast, maybe every foot or 8 inches. Just keep making the cast repetitive and finally get the bite. Try that in the springtime. You'll catch a lot of fish.
Next week, we're headed to Lake Neely Henry for the Alabama Top 100. Join us right here on TNN Outdoors for all the action. And catch up on all the Bassmaster Tournament Trail news on the web. The address, www.bassmaster.com. For the Bassmasters, I'm Bob Cobb. We'll see you all next week.
The Bassmasters has been brought to you by Chevy Trucks, Mercury Outboards, Kmart, Ranger Boats, Quantum, Motor Guy, Berkeley, Plano Tackle Systems, Pennzoil Marine, Raytheon, Wrangler Rugged Wear, and the Bass Angler Sportsman Society.
Well, Bassmasters, the countdown is on for the 1999 Bassmasters Classic World Championship in New Orleans. We'll be there July the 29th, 30th, and 31st. Join us for daily weigh-ins inside the Louisiana Superdome. You all come.